Thank you for joining me today. Let me tell you this. The program that we're going to present to you today is like no other B-Tip program that we've done before. I think all of us have dreamed about going on a treasure hunt. As kids, we grow up thinking, wow, someday it'd be fun to go to do a treasure island to find some hidden treasure. Well, today I'm going to take you on a treasure hunt. Over 70 years ago, the Dead Sea Scrolls were located and found. And through the years, they've been deciphered and looked at and studied. But one in particular, the Copper Scrolls, we're just now beginning to understand the treasures that were talked about in that. Today, I want you to join me with my friend Jim Barfield, and you listen as we talk about something that's been hidden for several thousand years, just now coming to light, and how it points to the end time, the fact that we're living in the very days that we can be looking for the return of Christ. Now, here's our program for this week.
Joining me is Dr. Rob Lindsted and Dr. Jim Barfield. Gentlemen, welcome to the broadcast. Thank you for joining us.
Well, I'm excited to be here because I've been anticipating this all weekend long and for sure today, because I know the viewers are going to really be excited about what Jim has to share with us tonight.
Indeed. Jim, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, sir. This means a lot to me.
It means a lot to our audience, and many are watching. We've been plugging it now for a few days. Jim, what is your website if folks want to find out more about you?
CopperScrollProject.com.
CopperScrollProject.com. Copper Scroll, I'm going to bring it up here. CopperScrollProject.com. Give our audience a little bit about yourself. As I bring up the website, I'll show that while you're talking. Tell our audience about your past and I think a past life at one time, right? As a first responder?
I was a first responder. Actually, I was military for 10.5 years. Finished up flying helicopters for the 6th Cav Brigade in Fort Hood, Texas. I became a firefighter. Lawton, Oklahoma. I was there for 23, almost 24 years. I started off as a tailboarder, just a regular firefighter. And then I wound up being an investigator, arson investigator for the Lawton Fire Department, Lawton, Oklahoma. Loved the job, and matter of fact, I won some major awards. I was Oklahoma Investigator of the Year and International Association of Arson Investigators internationally. Worldwide, I was a top investigator for that year.
So you bring some of your investigative skills to this new vocation, which is searching for treasure. And as I understand from Rob, you're searching for treasures, not for yourself, that whatever you find, you're going to give to the Temple Institute or the folks there in Israel. As I understand, you don't want a penny for yourself. You're searching to show the validity and authenticity and veracity of the Bible. Is that right?
That is absolutely true.
Yeah.
My biggest goal out of all this is I want to help bring our Messiah, and my grandchildren, great-grandchildren will be living under a righteous king. And gentlemen, that's my goal.
Wow,
that
excellent.
is my heart.
Well, with that being said, let's get right to it. You guys have graciously sent over a PowerPoint presentation tonight. We'll start with this first slide right here. The Copper Scroll, as it was found in 1952. Now, a lot of folks know about the Dead Sea Scrolls, but not many people, even a lot of Christians, I've talked to a few people the last few days, they've said, I've never heard of the Copper Scroll. I've heard of the Dead Sea Scrolls, but I've never heard of the Copper Scroll. Tell us about it, please.
Yeah, the Copper Scroll is the way you saw it in that last picture. That's actually the way it was found. That picture was actually the day it was found, and it really is. It's a copper scroll about 7 feet long and about 1 foot wide. It has 12 columns, side by side, that describe incredible treasures from the Temple of Solomon, and there's 57 locations, gentlemen. And ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be amazing. If I am absolutely correct, this is going to be world-changing.
All right, let's go to the next slide. Is this more of the actual pictures of the Copper Scroll?
That's not an actual picture. That's a composite because the Copper Scrolls had to be cut, sliced into pieces about 4 or 5 inches wide because they couldn't open it. It was so brittle every time they tried to open it, unroll it, because it had been rolled up. And people call it the Copper Scrolls. It's not. It's a copper scroll. What happened was whenever they were rolling it up, getting it ready to put in that cave, it snapped in two. It broke off. One section of it, 1/3 of it broke off. So that's what this is. That's what that was all about. This copper scroll is the only one in the Qumran collection that is actually made out of copper. So what that's telling you is they intended, who wrote this, the men who wrote this intended it for it to last to the end of the age. Matter of fact, in 4 of the books that I've read, at the end of it, when they describe this copper scroll and the treasures, all of them say this: these items will not be found until the time of the coming of the Messiah. Now that's pretty amazing, especially with what's happening today and all the biblical things that are happening today. That's what's going on here, and we could be part of biblical history.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating. Now, let me get clear on this. Are you saying that in these caves, again, I want to make sure we're bringing everybody up to speed, even for new people, these are found in a series of caves, 56, 57 caves called Qumran, and that's, outside of Jerusalem? Where is that?
No, actually, Qumran is a little village.
Okay.
It has a building, it's a treasury, it's got mikvahs, which are baptismal pools. It's got many different types of building, a little laundry area, a place for the goats and sheep. But what they did is they buried 57 locations inside, or actually 55 locations inside of the ruins of Qumran. It's a little village.
Where is it on the map? Is it outside of Jerusalem? Where is it?
If you go to the Dead Sea,
yeah,
and there would be an ancient town there, and most people associate the little ruins that are there with the Essenes, but whether you can call them by other names, but they were faithful people, and some of the ink that's found in the ruins there, you actually find that same ink used in Masada. So some of those people at one time escaped to Masada, but it's right on the shore of the Dead Sea. So as you leave Jerusalem, I'm going to say about an hour's drive going south out of Jerusalem or so.
Yes, a straight line distance. It's only about 13 miles, but you know how crooked and windy the roads are in Israel. It takes about 45 minutes to an hour to get to the ancient ruins.
So you can see where En-Gedi is, and so between Masada and En-Gedi, that's where you're going to find Qumran. And Qumran is famous because during that 10-year period, they found a number of scrolls, and then the hillside lit up with people looking for all kinds of artifacts and treasures. Trouble is, it was haphazard how they went after it, and so in the copper scroll, unique from the other scrolls. And by the way, when I say Dead Sea scrolls, a lot of times people think that they were found in the Dead Sea. No, they were found close to the Dead Sea in this place called Qumran. And Qumran is now an ancient village. There's a famous picture. Everyone who goes to Qumran will see that cave, and that's the famous cave that when you go there, you got to see the cave because it's in every book. But the caves we're going to look at are close to this, but they're not this particular cave. And there were things found in that cave, but the truth is, the exciting part that we're interested in are just a little ways from there.
Now, I want to make sure real clear that ours understands. Do you believe that this copper scroll was it just placed there on the ground? It wasn't buried, it wasn't hidden? And if it wasn't buried or hidden, was it placed in that cave with the intention of someone finding it?
Absolutely. 5 men wrote this copper scroll.
And how do you know 5 men wrote? How do you know that? Because the handwriting's different, or what?
There's 2 different documents that say that. There's 5 different handwritings on it, and 2 of the men that wrote this copper scroll were actually Haggai and Zechariah. So now that in itself is very interesting. But they was written by.
Are we talking? Wait a minute. Are we talking about Haggai and Zechariah as in the Bible?
Yeah.
So are you telling me you have the handwriting of Haggai?
Well, I don't have it, but the actual copper scroll is in Amman, Jordan.
Okay.
I've got friends over there that just sent me pictures today. They were over there and took pictures of it, And that's where the actual copper scroll is right now.
And so you're saying it was placed in this cave. It wasn't hidden. It wasn't buried. It was there, and it was on copper, so it would be preserved. They were intending for someone to find this. It was found, as you said, in 1950. What was it?
52.
52.
1952.
It was intended to be found. And am I understanding this is basically a treasure map? Is that what it is?
That is what it is, a verbal treasure map, 52 locations described in detail so that whoever figured out how to understand it will be able to find each and every one of them. I found them all, I believe, except for one. There's
now, are
one
you
of
the
them
only one to have found them? Are you the only one to have been studying and even looking for them?
No, I'm not the only one that's been studying.
Let me just insert something here. Jim, using his skills as an investigator, came into play, and so people have looked at the copper scroll. They've looked at other maps. I've discussed with you a mutual friend of Jim and myself, and he's Vendel Jones. The people will know him as Indiana Jones, and finally there came a time when I parted ways with him because I did disagree with him theologically, and but Vendel was pretty clever on the copper scrolls, and so Jim and Vendel got together, but Jim has probably spent more time studying this, and I think he put together the key. And one of the keys that he put together was he looked at the map of Jerusalem, and he saw where certain important artifacts were, the column of Boaz, for example. And so then when he comes down to Qumran, I don't know how he got the insight to do it, but he actually flipped over the picture of Qumran, and when you flip it north to south, it lines up with Jerusalem. And so that was a big piece of the puzzle. And so that was part of the puzzle. The other thing that's incredible is this. When he began to look at the scroll, he takes and we'll show this later in our program, he takes the ancient Hebrew, he puts it into modern Hebrew, he translates the modern Hebrew, and then he puts the story. Yeah, there's a great example. And so if you see that first line, it looks like a kindergartner writing. Well, that's probably the handwriting of one of these 5 people. The next line, that's the modern Hebrew. Okay, then we go to the Strong's or literal translation of this, and then we do the composite rendering. When I say we do, Jim has done the work. I'm just an excited spectator, but no one else had really done it to this degree and taken it literally, and then got back to the site, and really for the last, he started studying this in 1995. I think he started on the copper scrolls in 2009. So between 2009 and 2024, he's dedicated 15 years of his life to looking at where these artifacts are, measuring them out with a tape measure, going in and out of case. The patience of that has paid off. And so we're seeing, we're going to, in an hour and a half, we're going to see the result of 15 years of hard work.
Absolutely fascinating. So you start this in 1995, you start studying the copper scroll, and you come upon your first clue. What was your first clue?
Actually, the first clue was, it's written in the copper scroll. It says, under the ruins in the valley of Achor. That's the first clue. So I knew that I needed to look for a set of ruins within the valley of Achor, and I knew of one. Qumran, that's the only one I knew of. I've been studying the Dead Sea Scrolls since 1995. I actually started on the copper scroll in 2006. And I read the first line, and I thought, this is easy. Well, I had a map of Qumran sitting on my desk, my study room, pulled it out, set it down, and I started reading the first line of it. And my wife tells me this. She laughs at me. She said, Jimmy, you're probably the only guy in history that actually followed the instructions for the first time, because that's how I did it. I simply followed the instructions. It says, under the ruins of the valley of Achor. So I sat down with a set of ruins, and I thought, well, if this one doesn't match the treasure burial locations, I'll find another set of ruins. However, logically speaking, these are with the ruins of Qumran, or with the treasures, and then I consider the treasures the scrolls that are found there. They were all together, so I figured, you know what? This is the most logical place to start. I'll just start with Qumran. That's where all these scrolls are written. Let's give it a try. It worked incredibly well.
And what did you find? You say it worked. What did you find?
Well, the first thing I did was I read the first one. It says, at the steps heading east, 40 cubits long, are silver service vessels, 17 talents of silver service vessels. The only silver service vessels I was aware of was temple treasures. So I thought, okay, I'll take a look. So I looked at a map of Qumran, and I found a set of steps. The only set of steps that headed east was the one that we've got some pictures of here. It was a mikvah, and it was exactly 40 cubits long. I measured it. I did the math on it, and that's it. That there. And from the very edge of it to the very back of it, I measured it, and it was exactly 40 cubits long. Well, actually, it's about the width of my finger off. So I thought, well, that's really interesting, but that could be luck. It could be a coincidence. So I went to the next set of the next treasure that's buried there. That's location number one. Location number two is filled with massive amounts of gold. That's location number two that you pulled up on the screen. What it said was at the courtyard Hagadol. That means the large courtyard, and it says where the fountain runs into it. Dig there in the soft mire. Well, it's not soft mire anymore. Back then, mire was mud. Today, it is hardened up after 400 years. It's hardened up, and that's where I chose. And oh my goodness.
Okay, so you scanned it. You obviously you didn't dig yet, but what you say you think there's gold under there. You say that, I'm kind of giving it away for the sake of time. You say that based on the fact that you scanned it with something, like a big gigantic metal detector, right?
It was a gigantic metal detector. It's 6 feet wide, 6 feet long. It's just a square made out of plastic pipe. And then I've got a device that ties to your chest. Well, here's what happened. I met a gentleman by the name of Moshe Feiglin. He was the deputy speaker of the Knesset, and I told him, and he saw my research, and he was fascinated. He said, "Why aren't you digging this stuff up?" I said, "Your government won't let me." I said, "I can't dig there anyway. But if I tried to do anything, scan it or try to dig, I'd be going to jail." He said, "You know what?" He said, "I'm the deputy speaker of the Knesset." He said, "I have diplomatic immunity. I will meet you the next time you come to Israel. Bring your scanner and we'll scan it." And I said, okay. So I gathered my stuff up. A month later, I'm in Israel with Moshe Feiglin and his entourage. And we do a scan of that place. We scanned 5 different locations, and all 5 of them came back with several positive hits of non-ferrous metals. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, was just incredible. And it's in that location location number 2 has 900 talents. A talent, and the best guess that we've got right now is 75 pounds per talent. 900 times 75 times 14 ounces, which is a troy ounce. You have to calculate it that way. And you do the math on it. And when you realize how much gold is per ounce today, it's somewhere near $2 billion in one location.
That is amazing. And of course, this leads you to believe, I'm going to pull up some other PowerPoints that Rob sent me last week with some graphics in here. That would lead you to believe that overall, because that was just one, as I understand, of the smallest areas, if you were to add them all together, you're thinking you're at what, trillions of dollars just in precious metals?
I honestly, I couldn't say, but I'm going to say probably $1 trillion. But now that's just the metal value. You're not talking, the story behind it, provenance behind these items. You get a bowl of silver made out of silver, and it's 10 ounces of silver. It's worth probably $250, just the silver. But then you find out that it's from the tabernacle of Moses. Now, how much is that thing worth? It skyrockets. It's after that. So yes, I do believe it's an incredible amount of money that's buried there.
So let's go then. So you find this first spot with the stairs. I want to show the audience that again, just to remind them what we're talking about. You found this first spot with the stairs. It lined up according to the copper scroll. Then you listened to the copper scroll and went to this second spot with the help of a government official who had diplomatic immunity. You scanned it. Your scans show that there's something there, which again would lead you to believe is gold based on the scroll. So that's number 2. Pick it up from there, please.
Okay, it's got, if you can see that's a large point sticking up, it has an L3 by it.
Yes.
That is location number 2.
Okay.
Location number 2 is, it's off the charts as far as how much gold, obviously. But the green is a ferrous metal. So I'm guessing those green box looking things, maybe that's what they are. But blue, red, and orange, I believe, are non-ferrous metals. So those locations, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 different locations there that we got in one scan. Now there's a specific pattern you have to take. You go up, you turn, come back down right beside the other one, and then back and forth until you scan the whole area. Then you go sit down and you get the computer to generate this picture. Ladies and gentlemen, when I saw that thing, I was in Engedi underneath a large canopy thing. And when it popped up on the screen, I about fell out of my chair. Of course I was hoping that, these items would be there, but those items are all in the locations where I'd selected that there would be precious metals found.
And the reason you selected them is because you were following your treasure map, the copper scroll.
Like I said, I just followed the instructions, and that's how this all came about.
In the copper scrolls, as you look at the sections, and remember it's in sections because it's written different than our books, but so this is the interpretation of it. But if you go back to one of the slides we sent, there's really 12 columns, and in those 12 columns you can see there's different handwriting. Whoever wrote them, how they engrave the letters into the copper scroll, you can see that it's distinct different people, but there's a commonality to this. Yeah, and so that was, yeah, there we go. So if you look at that, 12 columns, and so that's the whole of the copper scroll. And so there's clues in there, but in there it names things, and it does name that there's going to be gold.
And why are some of them blacked out, Rob?
That it's actually that was rotted, and you can look back at the other one where it's copper. It's rotted out. It's literally, see the rotted places. That's where we couldn't see the actual text. So I just put that in there to let people know these are where the rotted locations were at.
Okay.
But it also, besides the silver and gold, because I think this is to me, it's a really important point. It talks about items from the house of Moses, let's say the tabernacle of Moses. So really, there's an excellent chance that some of the very items that were used in the tabernacle could well be here. It talks about the ephod of the priest. Well, in Hosea chapter 3, verses 4 and 5, it says, in the latter days, Israel's going to be without a priest. They're going to be without a sacrifice. I mean, we're talking the red heifer sacrifice and how to get this started. So without a king, without a priest, without a sacrifice, and they're going to be absent of the ephod. Here we are looking for one of the treasures in this is the ephod.
And what is that? What is that?
That's the breastplate of the high priest.
Okay.
And as he wanted to discern the will of God, he would ask questions to it, and God would direct him. It's not only made of valuable materials, but also there were 12 stones. Each tribe had a stone. And so this would be an authentic diamond, an authentic ruby. Each tribe had a stone. And those would be genuine stones
like that?
of value.
Like that?
Yep, like that. So can you imagine digging that up? This is going to make King Tut's treasures look like kindergarten work, because this is incredible, because what it does, it lends credence to the fact that God spoke to Moses. God spoke through the breastplate of the high priest, and it's recorded. It's been buried for 2,500 years. Wow! Right now, we're seeing these things all come into play, and so that's one of the things that might find. we don't know what's there until we dig. But I know in talking to Jim, there could be the Ark of the Covenant. There could be the kalil, the pot that contains the ashes of the red heifer, the last one that was burned. And now, of course, we have a new surge going on to sacrifice one of the red heifers that's there in Jerusalem right now. So all these things are coming into play, but it's just incredible that after all these years of decoding this to the accuracy, go out and measure it. Think about measuring 40 cubits. I mean, we're talking approximately 50 over 40 yards, and you're off the width of your finger. I told you that this program was going to be like none you've seen before. You see, all the time there's bad news that's presented to you, but this is good news. I'm excited about what's taking place in Qumran. I'm excited because I really believe that Jim Barfield is on the way to finding some treasure that's been hidden for a long time. And perhaps indeed it is the treasures of Solomon. But speaking of treasure, and speaking of the excitement concerning the end time, isn't it amazing that Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 13 would talk about how the enemies of Israel would come in the last days, and they would come to take a spoil, to take silver and gold. Maybe this spoil is indeed the breastplate of the priest, the ephod. Maybe indeed it's some of the vessels of the temple. Or maybe it's just the gold and silver that looks like it's there in the Qumran location. But you see, there's another treasure. And this treasure is the Word of God. This treasure is receiving Jesus Christ as your personal Savior. My friend, all these things indicate that we're living in the last days. And all these things indicate that right now is a time to get right with Jesus Christ. My friend, have you ever received Him as your Savior? Because if so, you've got the greatest treasure in the world. And if you haven't, do so now. Admit to God that you're a sinner, that you're short of His standard. Accept what Jesus Christ did on the cross, the payment for your sin by shedding His blood, by dying on the cross, by resurrecting. My friend, the treasure can be yours by receiving Christ. And then next week, we'll continue our story with Jim Barfield and the search in Qumran. Thank you for joining me today. We'll see you next week.